It all started with a single cat. Jason had found it one evening, this tiny, shivering ball of fur, abandoned near a park bench. He begged me to let him keep it.
It's just one cat, Liv.
He said, his eyes pleading.
Look at it, it needs me.
I hesitated, but eventually gave in. One cat wouldn't hurt, right? It was cute after all, and Jason had always had a soft spot for animals. But that's where it began, and it didn't end there. A week later, Jason brought home 5 more cats. 5! The apartment, which had once been cozy and clean, now smelled of litter boxes and fur. The cats scratched the furniture, knocked things off shelves, and left hairballs in the corners. It wasn't even about the mess anymore. It was about how out of control things were getting. I tried to talk to him. "Jason, this is too much. We don't have room for all these cats." He just shrugged, grinning like it was no big deal.
They're rescues. They need me. Who else is going to take care of them?
I let it go again, feeling guilty for wanting to say no, but deep down something about it all felt wrong. And soon enough, it got worse. One night, I came home late from work. I stepped into the apartment and immediately noticed something was off. The air felt heavier, the smell stronger than usual. And then I saw it. A large metal cage in the middle of the living room. Inside were rats, dozens of them, squeaking and scratching at the bars, their tiny bodies wriggling over each other. Jason was kneeling by the cage, tossing in old bread, like he was feeding birds at the park. I froze, my heart pounding. "What the hell is this?" He didn't even look up.
They were going to be used for experiments. I couldn't let that happen.
My stomach twisted. "Jason, this is insane! Rats! You can't bring rats into the apartment!"
They need me.
He said softly, his eyes finally meeting mine. They were wide, almost desperate.
No one else cares about them, Liv. You don't understand.
I didn't know what to say. He always made me feel like I was the selfish one, like I was heartless for not wanting to live in a zoo. But this was too much. Soon it wasn't just rats. The apartment became a nightmare. Cages, aquariums, scratching posts. Every inch of space filled with something alive. Birds squawked from their cages in the kitchen. Hamsters ran on wheels in the bathroom. I couldn't take it anymore. But Jason? He was lost in it. He barely even noticed me anymore. He spent all his time caring for the animals, talking to them like they were his only family. I tried to talk, to make him see reason, but it was like speaking to a wall. And then he brought home the dog. It wasn't just any dog. It was a huge, wild-looking mutt with matted fur and eyes that gleamed with something I couldn't place. The moment I saw it, I felt a cold fear creep up my spine. It looked dangerous, rabid even. "What are you doing, Jason?" I asked, backing away from the snarling dog. "That thing could kill us!"
Hey, it's okay. He's fine.
Jason said, reaching down to pet the dog's head. It snapped at his hand, but he didn't flinch.
He's just scared. He'll calm down once he gets used to us.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "No, this is it. You can't keep bringing wild animals into the house. We're done." But he just looked at me, that same pleading look he always used.
He needs me, Liv. No one else would take him.
That night, I couldn't sleep. The noise was constant, the birds flapping, the rats scratching, the cats knocking things over, and then I heard it, the soft creak of a cage door opening. My heart stopped. I sat up in bed, straining to hear. There it was again, scratching, scurrying. The rats. They were out. I shook Jason awake, panic rising in my chest. "Jason, the rats!" He groaned and sat up, rubbing his eyes.
Relax, Liv. I'll get them back in the cage.
I jumped out of bed, my skin crawling at the thought of those tiny creatures running loose. I grabbed my things and made a decision. Jason didn't argue. He just nodded, too tired to care. He was already trying to catch the escaped rats. I grabbed my bag and headed for the door, but as I reached the hallway, I froze. The dog was standing there, blocking the exit. Its eyes gleamed in the dim light and its lips curled back. revealing sharp yellowed teeth. A low growl rumbled from its throat. "Jason!" I called, my voice trembling. "Get the dog, now!" But he was too busy with the rats to hear me. The dog's growl grew louder, its muscles tensing. I took a step back, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew what was coming. I screamed, diving to the side just as it snapped at where I'd been standing. Jason came running, throwing himself between me and the dog. The dog sank its teeth into Jason's hand and wouldn't let go. Jason screamed in pain, telling me to run. Through gritted teeth, he said,
I'm sorry, Liv.
I didn't need to be told twice. I bolted for the door, my legs trembling beneath me. My hands shook as I dialed 911. When the operator picked up, I could barely get the words out. "Help! Please! He's keeping animals. Too many. It's dangerous." I never went back. I didn't want to know what happened after I left. Everything was so exhausted.
I never expected to become friends with someone like Thomas. As desk buddies, our conversations were mostly one-sided, with me doing most of the talking. Thomas was shy and strangely odd, but over time, he began to open up. He smiled more often, though there was something unsettling about his smile that I couldn't quite shake. One day, out of the blue, Thomas invited me to his house for a sleepover. I hesitated at first, but my curiosity about his mysterious family got the better of me. When I arrived, Thomas's parents greeted me with the same unsettling smiles I had seen on his face. They were overly polite, their eyes too wide, and their voices carrying an unnatural cheerfulness that made my skin crawl. During dinner, I could hardly focus on the food because I kept hearing something odd. A faint, distant crying, as if a child were sobbing somewhere in the house. No one else seemed to notice, and when I mentioned it to Thomas, he just shrugged and told me not to worry. After his parents went to bed, Thomas turned to me with a grin.
Hey, wanna see my old friend?
His voice was playful, but there was an edge to it that made my stomach twist. I hesitated, but I didn't want to seem scared. "Sure," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. We tiptoed through the dark hallway, the only light coming from the moon outside. I was most surprised by how the Donovan family seemed to have a thing for collecting mirrors, as they were lined up along the entire hallway. As we approached a large draped object at the end of the hall, the crying I'd heard earlier grew louder. My heart pounded in my chest. This was no trick of the imagination. Thomas stopped and whispered,
Don't worry if he looks at you, just make sure you look away fast. You'll be fine as long as you look away fast.
I didn't understand what he meant, but before I could ask, he pulled the sheet back, revealing the mirror's intricate carvings. The crying was coming from inside the mirror, but there was no one else in the room. I stared at the glass, trying to make sense of what I was seeing, or not seeing. My reflection was missing, replaced by the image of a boy I didn't recognize, standing in the corner of the mirrored space. I wanted to believe it was some sort of optical illusion, but when the boy turned around and started walking toward me, I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. "Thomas, who is that?" But Thomas didn't answer. When the boy's face came into view, I felt my blood turn to ice. His features were stretched and distorted, like those in a funhouse mirror, and his lips twisted into a grotesque smile as he pressed his hands against the glass. Suddenly, his fingers started pushing through the mirror's surface, reaching out toward me. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, as the boy's long, thin arms stretched toward my face.
Ryan, look away!
Thomas shouted, grabbing my arm and yanking me back. I stumbled away from the mirror, gasping for breath. I heard a faint giggle from behind the glass as the boy slowly withdrew, his smile never fading.
We have to go!
Thomas said urgently, pulling me back down the hall. We rushed back to his room where Thomas quickly locked the door behind us. I wanted to ask a million questions, but the look on Thomas's face told me now wasn't the time. We climbed into bed, but there was no way I could sleep after what I'd just seen. As Thomas's breathing evened out beside me, I knew I couldn't stay in that house. Whatever was in that mirror, it wasn't human. I waited until I was sure Thomas was asleep, before quietly slipping out of bed. I tiptoed to the door and carefully opened it. As I crept toward the stairs, just as I reached the top, heavy footsteps echoed behind me. Panicking, I ducked behind the nearest door, peeking through a narrow gap. Mr. Donovan, Thomas's father, marched past, carrying something rectangular under his arm. The faint tinkling of glass reached my ears as he headed toward Thomas's room. My stomach lurched. I didn't want to know what he was planning. Suddenly, I heard Mr. Donovan shout,
"He's gone!"
Panic surged through me. I sprinted through the hallway where I heard the cries of children and the clattering of glass against wood. I finally reached the garage and bolted inside, slamming the door behind me. My hands trembled as I grabbed my bike and wheeled it to the door, pressed the button to open the garage door. Just as I managed to get it open, I saw Mr. Donovan standing in the doorway, his face twisted in anger. For the first time, he wasn't smiling. He rushed toward me. In his rush, he stumbled, and the mirror he carried crashed to the floor, shattering into pieces. The room filled with eerie laughter. When I looked back, I saw long, thin arms reaching out from the broken glass, grasping at Mr. Donovan. The lights flickered wildly as his screams filled the garage, but I didn't stay to watch. I jumped on my bike and pedaled as fast as I could, speeding down the driveway and away from that cursed house.
I've always known my girlfriend Caitlin wears too much makeup. I'm not talking about a bit of mascara and some lipstick. No, Caitlin layers on foundation, concealer, and God knows what else until her face looks like a porcelain mask. It's not just her face, either. Her neck and chest are also meticulously coated, making her look almost like a painted doll. But here's the thing. I've never seen her without it. We've been dating for almost a year, and I'm crazy about her. She's smart, funny, and beautiful. At least I think she is, under all that makeup. But her obsession with never being seen without it has started to strain our relationship. She avoids any activity that might smudge her makeup, which includes not just swimming or running, but even simple things like getting caught in the rain, touching her face, or kissing for more than a few seconds. It's like she's always hiding something. One night, I decided enough was enough. We were staying at my parents' house, and I had stayed up late to finish some work. After a few beers, I made up my mind. I was going to see Caitlin without her makeup. I had to know what she was hiding. I sneaked into my mum's bathroom and grabbed some cleanser and cotton pads. My heart pounded as I crept back to the bedroom where Caitlin was sleeping. Her makeup had left orange stains on the white sheets. I perched on the edge of the bed and lightly dabbed a cotton pad on her cheek. Nothing happened. I wiped harder. Still nothing. The makeup came off on the pad, but her face looked exactly the same. I took another pad and continued, wiping the same spot over and over. Then I saw it. A patch of redness under the layers. It looked like raw flesh. No skin, just muscle and tissue. Panic surged through me. What the hell was I looking at? Suddenly, Caitlin shifted and her eyes snapped open, wide with panic.
Tom! What are you doing?
She demanded, sitting up and cupping her face. She felt the bare patch I'd uncovered and screamed.
What have you done?
She bolted out of bed and ran to the mirror, staring at the damage in horror. Then she turned to me, eyes wild.
You didn't touch it, did you?
Touch what? I stammered, utterly confused.
That!
She shouted, pointing to the exposed flesh on her cheek. I don't know, I stuttered. Why? But she wasn't listening. She tore out of the room and disappeared down the hallway. I sat there, stunned, until she came back, clutching a kitchen knife. Whoa, whoa, I yelled. What are you doing with that?
Shut up!
She snapped.
Which hand did you use?
I pointed to my right hand, too shocked to do anything else.
How long ago?
Maybe 10 minutes? I squeaked. Her eyes widened in terror.
It's too late! Your whole arm must go!
I scrambled off the bed, backing away. You can't cut off my arm,
I have to,
she insisted.
or the infection will spread.
Jesus Christ! What infection? Caitlin, what are you talking about?
Tom, please! It has to be done now.
I wasn't about to let her amputate my arm. I fled the room, slamming the door behind me and locking it. She pounded on the door, screaming to be let out, but I ignored her. My parents, woken by the commotion, came out of their bedroom, but I told them we'd had an argument and they went back to bed. I spent the night on the couch, but I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what had happened. Why did Caitlin react that way? What was wrong with her skin? In the morning, I cautiously went back upstairs. I unlocked the bedroom door, armed with a knife just in case. But when I opened it, Caitlin was sitting on the edge of the bed, facing the wall. She had reapplied her makeup, and her face was once again a flawless mask. Caitlin, I ventured. She didn't respond at first. Then she turned to me, eyes cold and distant.
I don't think this is going to work out, Tom.
What? Why? I asked, my heart sinking.
You're not trustworthy.
She replied.
You knew I didn't want you to see me without makeup, and you did it anyway.
I just wanted to help you, I protested. I didn't know about whatever this is. She shook her head.
It doesn't matter. It's over.
I was stunned. But Caitlin, I love you. She gave me an eerily smile.
Yeah, well, looks like it's your problem now, too.
She handed me a bottle of foundation.
You'll need this.
She said, and then she was gone. I stared at the bottle in disbelief. What was I supposed to do with it? I tossed it in the trash and went downstairs. My mind a whirlwind of confusion and fear. In the kitchen, my mum was making breakfast. As soon as she saw me, she gasped and dropped a plate. Tom, what happened to your face? I ran to the mirror in the hallway. My reflection stared back at me, horrified. A patch of my skin was missing, replaced by raw red flesh, the same as Caitlin's. I touched the spot, my fingers trembling. It was spreading, and at that moment, I understood. Caitlin's secret was now mine to bear. The infection, whatever it was, had passed to me. I was becoming like Caitlin, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I hate this looping life. My legs are numb from running errands all day at work, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Feels like an endless loop to me. The sound of the wheels rolling steadily on the tracks is like a sad song, repeating over and over without end. Suddenly, the lights in the train car go out. The air around me becomes cold, and the train shakes violently. A voice comes over the loudspeaker. There is a problem on the train, please remain calm. Then quickly announces, this is Shinkansen Guruguru Zero headed to Tokyo. My heart pounds, and I decide to go to the other cars to check on the situation. But strangely, every car looks the same, and each one bears the number 4. My head starts spinning with unanswered questions. The same man is slumped against the wall. The same old man sits in the corner of the car. You've fallen into a loop, he says, his voice deep and ominous. A loop? I ask, not understanding what he means. Yes, to escape you must follow the rules. If you see something unusual, turn back. If you see nothing unusual, keep moving to the next car. The old man said. I look around again. Everything around me is identical to the previous cars, from the seat designs to the dim lighting and stifling air. But as I move further in, a shiver runs down my spine, like the feeling of being watched. Suddenly, I see a human hand on the train floor, sticking out from under a seat. It moves as if trying to grab me. My heart stops for a moment and fear surges up. A headless body was trying to cling to me, creeping closer to me, and its hands were reaching out as if searching for something. I realize this is something unusual, just as the old man said. I turn around, ready to run forward. Suddenly, a head fell right before my eyes. Its eyes are wide open, lifeless, and its mouth is agape as if trying to scream, but no sound comes out. In a split-second reaction, I dodge the bizarre head instinctively to avoid danger. I crawl into. Before I can catch my breath, suddenly, the sound of breaking glass comes from above. Water starts pouring into the car quickly like an invisible monster. I can't think, just act as fast as I can, my feet pounding on the floor. My heart races, breaths coming in gasps. The water rises, nearly reaching my knees. Although the strong current was blocking me, I still tried to move forward as quickly as possible. Just in time. My heart feels like it will explode, having narrowly escaped the dangerous water. Entering car number 2, I see the man who was asleep before is now awake, sitting upright. At first I don't notice, but then I see his legs sticking out, moving like octopus tentacles. When I accidentally look into his eyes, they suddenly glow, cold and malevolent. He screams, the sound echoing through the car, then stands up, chasing after me. My heart races and my legs seem to gain strength from the fear. I turn and run as fast as I can toward the door, but the distance between me and the octopus man is quickly shortened. I can hear his tentacles stretching out. The door to the car closes just as I barely make it through. Car number 1. I sigh in relief, barely escaping the pursuit. Car number 1 is eerily quiet. I carefully search everywhere, checking each seat, every corner, hoping to find some sign. Each step makes my heart beat faster. Nothing unusual. I check every little detail, but everything is normal. I decide to take a risk. Thankfully, I step into car number 0, feeling a blanket of calmness. This is the last car. I think I'm close to escaping the loop. This car looks completely normal, with no signs of anything unusual. I sigh in relief, thinking I've finally escaped the nightmare. But then, just as I'm about to leave the car, I notice something moving in the corner. A strange creature stands up from a seat, its eyes glowing brightly in the dark. Its skin blends with the patterned seat fabric, making it invisible until now. The creature starts moving toward me, quickly and silently. Panicked, I turn and run toward the other door. The creature is almost upon me. Its footsteps are heavy. Its breath is cold like a freezing wind on my neck. I run as fast as I can, but it feels like I'm never fast enough. The creature is getting closer. I can feel its presence right behind me. Just as I reach the door, a seat suddenly flipped down, tripping me up, and I fall to the floor. The creature lunges, its long, bony arms ready to grab me. I can't do anything but close my eyes, bracing for the inevitable end. I wake up after a bizarre dream. A worried woman looks at me suddenly, concerned in her eyes, asking, "Do you know why everything seems to be repeating? You've fallen into a loop." I can't control my voice. If you want to escape, remember the rules. If you see something unusual, run straight ahead, don't look back.